Hello and welcome to episode 132 of the Homegames podcast. My name is Joseph Garcia, and they said this wouldn't happen, folks. They said it couldn't be done. They said the Homegames podcast was over, and they were right for the most part, which we're going to talk about later. But for right now, I am going to provide some very special updates on stuff that's happened since I last recorded an episode. So a summary of that was felt like my life was too busy, felt like home games didn't get the kind of traction that I was hoping for, and it was like, well, I have a kid, I'm going to go and focus on the kid. Didn't know it at the time, but my wife was pregnant with our second kid, who is now here, which is why I'm in the garage recording at 11 o'clock, and it's 90 degrees outside. It's kind of everything's kind of a mess, but I've been very busy on home games. Since the last time I recorded. The idea at the time was, just quickly, it was all a self-hosted, server-based game system, and it was very techy. Like you have to know a lot of systems and components of what's going on to even run this thing yourself, and play games. Where if my audience is casual people trying to just see what's going on, I'm losing basically everybody who looks at the website. So that was kind of it, and it was like, yeah, well, here it is. If you want to mess with it, I'm gonna try to keep messing with it, and let me know if you have issues or whatever. So that was the end of 2024, and so yeah, a couple months after that, I started just working on little updates, mostly around the hot potato game, which is one of the biggest hits in the Home Games catalog. By the way, if you haven't seen Home Games recently, I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff, but go to homegames.io. Like, a ton of changes that you can check out before I talk about them, and then you'll have a little bit more context. But essentially, yeah, was working on Hot Potato, some small updates there. Excuse me, some incremental stuff, and it was just slow, especially because learned that we were having our second kid, so it was just super not a priority to work on home games. In the background, 2025, AI stuff started getting really good at writing code. This is something I'm going to save kind of the whole second half of this podcast for, because it's a huge topic in my head, but essentially, yeah, it was seeing the momentum that I could get from using a tool like Cursor. This is what I was doing June of last year, was, $20 a month. Let's see what these things can do. Can these things write games? So, hey, here's home games. Here's, the home games core directory. Let you figure out some context to robot, Cursor. I don't even know what the model was at the time. It was probably maybe Claude, like Haiku or 4.6 or something like that. I think was the thing at the time. The thing at the time, but anyway, so yeah, basically just trying to see what these things could do. They made games like prototypes that were really unimpressive, mostly broken, required a lot of hand holding, but the ability to just sit down in a night and without a whole lot of momentum going into it, 8 o'clock at night, and you just tell a robot, like, hey, can you make something cool that we can maybe iterate on, and getting that kind of quick starting point that you can kind of find the energy to work on that night, became super easy. Was a thing that I didn't really have before with home games. So yeah, it just was kind of like, I really like this system, I like these tools, I like this thing that I made, and it doesn't feel like I've gotten the full potential out of it. I haven't squeezed what I could out of it. So yeah, just trying to think about that time. It was kind of iterative. It was kind of loose. It was just spending several months looking at things and saying, like, okay, well, I have this idea. I've had this idea for a long time for this one specific, pretty ambitious game. Essentially, Lemonade Stand. If you played Flash games 25 years ago, there was I'm sure even before that, but Lemonade Stand simulation, like simple, change your recipe, sugar, lemons, and then price. and every day you'd run a simulation that would sell lemonade at that price with that recipe. Customers would give feedback, and you'd kind of make a business out of it. It was a very simple kids learning game. Very fun. I don't know, a cool game to me. So I've always thought it would be fun to make a version of that, but there's kind of like a combat element. There's a at night you gather the resources. So instead of buying lemons and sugar, you are like fighting for them. It's kind of the idea. So made a very simple prototype with Cursor. This was again last summer. I don't know, June, July ish, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good, but it worked, and you can get it running. Again, this was on the like local game server setup, the old stuff. I have some notes here. I will go to them. Hopefully, I don't need to a whole lot, but essentially, that was it. Another thing in the back of my mind at the time was GitHub. So our publishing process, the game publishing process of Homegames, which over time became seemingly like one of the main ideas of the idea of the platform, as opposed to just like a thing that you run yourself. Like the networked group aspect, the platform required obviously your code, your game to live somewhere. And I guess thinking about my intention with this thing was essentially anything that you want to put on this platform, you can. I don't want to be the guy that says you can't post a certain thing or whatever because it's like, I don't know, I don't like it or whatever. It's basically 4chan rules, which is like whatever's legal, and we'll delete it if it's not, but do whatever you want. And I think that there's more I'll talk about with that later. Maybe that was a bit misguided or a little too open, but essentially that's what I wanted. And so, GitHub wouldn't allow that. Like, say, I don't know, hypothetically, there's just a collection of words that GitHub doesn't like, and you have that in your repo, and so then they don't allow that in the repo. Well, my publishing process in Homegames, therefore, depends on GitHub's rules, which means that I don't really control, the stuff, the rules for my own system, which I don't like. There's a lot more there. Again, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of happened. It's been basically almost 2 years since I recorded an episode of this. But the main project that really proved that I could continue to iterate on Homegames and really work on it and kind of make it something more with LLMs. I say that fast. LLMs. I got to say it. So you hear me, but large language models, AI, ChatGPT, Claude, that kind of stuff. Basically, I in a weekend removed the dependency from GitHub in our publishing process, and I self-hosted a Git service, an open source, project, Git service, and migrated the entire publishing backend to my own self-hosted Git service, and was like, what the heck is going on? Everything worked seamlessly. I was able to basically set up a simple front end where in the Homegames website you can say, create a game. And what you were really doing is creating a repository on this backend. Again, self-hosted Git service. And that backend would be kind of the source of truth for the code, and then my database just has kind of a reference to it. But the actual game code itself, all the commit history, lives on this service that I myself am hosting. I own the database. I control everything there. And so with that proof of concept, again, create a game which creates a repo, and then you can have kind of changes to your game live as a commit. Every change becomes a commit in your Git history for this game. I'm trying not to be too technical. I know this might be kind of all over the place, or maybe boring, whatever. But basically, proof of concept turned into the Homegames studio that exists today, which is essentially a full end-to-end develop a game, test your game, play your game, publish your game, all from your web browser, feature product type of thing. So, uh, yeah. So essentially, the idea at this point was you still have this core game service that you host yourself, but the rules for making your games and putting them on the platform are what I want them to be, which is kind of whatever you want. And built the studio iteratively, like over time. It took probably 6 months, 8 months of development to make the studio what it is today. Um, but the main core thing was that I was able to kind of get everything integrated into this one user interface that I was making, where you didn't have to have really even Git experience. You don't have to have a GitHub account. Accounts are a thing I'll talk about later. You just didn't really need to have any sort of background to go into this interface and make a game and start experimenting with stuff. And then again, it would go into this fuzzier thing of like you're self-hosting it yourself, and that requires technical knowledge or whatever. So that led into this whole other way of thinking, where if I'm trying to make everything accessible, if I'm making a thing that's so easy for you to make a game in the browser, why do I not let you play games consistently in the browser? Like, why is this service not focused around being easy to play in the browser, the same way I just made a thing where it's easy to make stuff in the browser, if that makes sense? So there's kind of been this competing idea in my head for a long time about what Homegames is. Kind of a few competing ideas. I think I've said it on the podcast before, but essentially a YouTube for games. Kind of very basic, but just like simple games that you make at home, kind of amateur games that you would be able to easily share the way, YouTube obviously did that for people with videos. The other thing is kind of like a 4chan for games, which is, imagine, it's like YouTube, but kind of like worse, was kind of the goal. But then also there was Newgrounds. Like, Newgrounds was a formative thing in my life, was a huge deal, were some of the first games I played were on Newgrounds in like the year 2000. I'm not super old. I guess I'm getting older, which is whatever. But one of the first things I remember, it was Pico's School or something like that. Just like a totally shocking game, where I think it was just after Columbine or around that time or whatever. But the game was, you're this kid and your school gets invaded or whatever by these terrorists, and you have to go and save your school. It's like bloody, and I was like 6 years old at the time. And yeah, anyway, just like the idea that someone could put something crazy on the internet and it's a game that you can play at 6 years old and it like changes your whole life is kind of a big thing in my head. And thinking that Homegames in some way can have this, I don't know, this like super experimental, like expressive, weird, cool thing where people can easily make games that are, interesting. So all these different ideas, right? So how is this YouTube and Newgrounds and 4chan, and also I'm making my own games for my own kids that I play on in my house, and Jackbox for games also, which is kind of the initial idea, multiplayer games on your phone. So a lot of these things all coming together and kind of clashing in some ways. But again, just trying to get through stuff. But the end result was games are still running on a server that I host. The same way, if you're an old podcast fan, you'll remember I talked about Pico de Gallo, which was a demo site. The idea was, I'm running this demo website over here. It's not homegames.io. It's this thing that I'm not branding it as Homegames because I really wanted to reinforce the idea that it's not like a hosted service. It's a thing that you run yourself, and this is just a demo, Pico de Gallo. And on my Pico de Gallo hosted Homegames instance, you can play my games that I've made, these experiments and tests, as kind of like a proof of concept, basically trying to sell you on the idea that you should host this yourself, experiment yourself, and learn it yourself. A lot of barriers, a lot of friction, obviously. So that's obviously why it never really made sense or whatever. But anyway, Pico de Gallo, that's what it was. The transition after the studio was basically me committing to providing a service of hosted games. I can run Homegames core on a AWS EC2 instance for not super cheap, but cheap enough to, I don't know, kind of justify seeing what happens. Basically running a Homegames core instance as a standalone thing, and Homegames.io, in my head previously was just a marketing website. The please download this, please check this out, please look at our YouTube or whatever. It now becomes basically Newgrounds, where someone can just go and find a game, play a game, and have an experience or whatever, all within the browser. So, okay, yes, I made a hosted, solid version. And again, LLMs are a big part of this. That's how I got so much velocity. Again, not trying to talk about it too much, but just the timeline is weird. I'm making like these big changes over a course of a few months. But I'm essentially just taking the existing components of Homegames, every piece that I kind of hand wrote and made into a weird thing over the course of several years. And I was kind of just structuring it differently with these tools. And was pretty happy with it. Made some good changes and basically made the system impressive and cool. Hosting these games, these multiplayer games on my Homegames core service, played through Homegames.io. So confident, in fact, that at the beginning of this month, July 2026, I posted on Hackernews, which, if you're unfamiliar with Hackernews, it's essentially like super nerd Reddit for software, hardware, computer type people. And it kind of has that reputation of people being not super cool. Whatever. So I wasn't excited. I never had the confidence, I guess, to post Homegames on there because I just thought it would be ripped apart. People being like, "Oh, I hate JavaScript. I hate you," whatever type of stuff. And so anyway, I posted it. Obviously, super nervous, but it felt like a kind of culmination. Like I had made these changes, right? The studio and the hosted service. Like you can go and play Vegas Trail. You can go and play Weed Smoke Willie right now today on Homegames.io. Like that was a crazy thing. Anyway, made it to the front page of Hacker News. Made it to the number 2 spot when it peaked. I have multiple coworkers, like current and former coworkers, reach out to me like, "Oh, I saw your thing. I remember you talked about this," or whatever. Like, congratulations on hitting the thing. It was like, what the hell's going on? This thing where like years and years go by, and it feels like I'm a crazy person because I've recorded all these podcasts. I've done all this stuff. I've like spent so much time on this, and it just feels like no one's really ever seen it. And then in that moment, it was like, okay, well, people actually see this. There are people who are playing the games, commenting about Weed Smoke Willie and stuff like that. And it was kind of a crazy thing. So anyway, that was happening, but also the other thing in the comments were like, why is this networked? Why am I running into this weird, like I'm trying to play this Weed Smoke Willie game. I'm trying to give your project a shot, but why is it giving me this error about a server? Why is this running on a server? And so a big part of it is I didn't really communicate up front, and it isn't clear still, I think, from the website that like this is how this works. These games run on a web server. These games don't run on your client, your browser, because the idea is that it's client agnostic. The idea is that it exists somewhere, and then your thing is just playing the game from somewhere. Very kind of hippy-dippy nonsense, but that's essentially the idea. But it's a fair criticism in this context. If I'm trying to make a Newgrounds thing, it just can't. It can't be server based for simple, obvious reasons, like single player games don't need to be server based. But the other one is cost. Like this Homegames does not make money. Money is a topic I'll talk about in another part of this podcast. I have plans, a lot to talk about. but this doesn't make money, so there's a certain cost I'm okay with spending on this thing because it's my personal budget or whatever for basically hobbies, is how I justify it. And I can't, just thinking about scale, if I were to have 200 people every month playing games on Homegames, well, I need to have servers up for 200 concurrent sessions theoretically all the time. And that just doesn't make any sense. It's not it doesn't work for anybody, and it actually costs me money in the process. So yeah, within a week from that successful launch with good feedback, I basically, again, going back to the restructuring things, uh, made games that you can play, or restructured things so you can play games offline on your client, which is like a complete fundamental structural shift in terms of what this service, this product is. But it only took like an hour to actually implement. Again, going back to that restructuring thing. From the beginning, games themselves have existed only as JavaScript classes. The idea was that they run in a node server somewhere, and there is this shared JavaScript component for serialization across the network. So your game is running on the server. It needs to tell a client the current state of the game. How does it do that efficiently? It sends this custom format of data that I made with Squish, which is our serialization library, Squish.js. But again, the games were always just JavaScript themselves. And obviously rendering in the canvas on the client in HTML clients, I guess. I'm trying to think about the current state. So the idea was always, like I said, to be client agnostic, but the actual real world today is that web browsers are the clients. Theoretically, we could still support an iOS client, or your toaster can connect to a game server or whatever if you wanted to. And I don't want to disallow that, but the reality is it's a web browser is the client. So yeah, games could just run in the browser itself. It doesn't need a server. And just, again, restructuring the code that I wrote myself that I know works, it's pretty solid, that is like human made, and using, at the time, Claude Opus 4.8 to just kind of see what it would be like to do a local implementation. And then, yeah, got that working and got it released. And so the velocity since this Hackernews post at the beginning of July has been so crazy, partially because of the motivation. Obviously, having people for the first time in my life, like hundreds of people, play games and give most of them giving feedback, or some of them giving feedback. And then, yeah, having Hot Potato is like a game that I can just play in the browser, and my daughter loves to play it with me. So, every day or every other day or so, she'll want to play the potato game, and we can just play it, and it just works. And I'm not even hosting it myself, which is a thing I'll have to talk about. So, yeah, basically that's the timeline. Beginning of this month, Hackernews, and I've kind of just been going crazy, iterating on stuff since then. Made some games. I've made some bug fixes and stuff like that. But the ability for me within a single night, like an hour or two, to make significant progress on Homegames, like, is just a completely new thing. I guess right now I'll talk about the AI stuff. I have more things to talk about, but the AI stuff has been it's been so insane. Like I said, starting with the cursor stuff that I did and seeing kind of a little bit of potential, and then going on to building the studio features with Claude Opus and seeing even more potential, and then kind of where we are now with the Claude Fable models, as well as GPT Soul, I think is what it's called. Just like unbelievable ability to write code. And just, this is all separate, I think, from, in my opinion, from like images and video and all that stuff with AI. I hate calling places and they have an AI voice talking to me. I hate seeing AI photos. I hate seeing AI videos. I mean, like, I think it's a pretty common thing. And not that they don't have their place. Like, there's a I love Gabagool video that I love. It's a AI slop on Twitter with, anyway, it's just garbage. And I think that has a place in my life, a little bit of AI generated garbage. But I hate the idea of a world where people are just like giving human beings output of AI, and that is like your creative output as a person. I think that's bad. So obviously still trying to kind of clarify my whole opinion on stuff, but things are changing fast. But I'm opposed to, yeah, like I was watching cable TV the other day, and there's an obvious AI ad with like AI courtroom people and AI voiceover talking about, I don't know, something stupid, and it's just it was so soulless, and it's crazy that like this is the real world, that this is actually happening. People are really trying to show me this to get me to buy something, and I really hate it. All of that said, AI has essentially in my real life automated a huge part of programming, which is actually writing the code. I've had like an existential crisis over the last 7 or 8 months with this. Just for context, I'm like, I think a real programmer. I've been working in as like a professional, whatever, in my real life for over 10 years. Big companies, small companies, like big scale, like real stuff. I'm like a real person. Degree in computer science, whatever. I don't know. I'm not trying to. I'm not like titles or whatever. I just like I know what I'm doing with a computer. I made most of Homegames by myself. Well, yeah, most of Homegames by myself. Over time, just kind of like whatever, messing around. I know how to write code. I understand it. Whatever. At the same time, it feels like a lot of that is over, and it's kind of an insane feeling, seeing my day-to-day kind of job become something completely different over the course of less than a year. And so we'll see, obviously, what happens in the next year, several years, whatever. Everything is really crazy these days, but the entire software engineering thing, I think, has become like a very different thing. I think fundamentals today are stronger, or are probably more required than ever. Like if I were doing this stuff and getting output from Claude and putting it into a browser and having it work, which it's basically what I do. I think it would just be like baffling. It already kind of is, but it's like, what is happening? I don't understand what's happening on my computer, and it just I'd feel lost. And so thinking about the current world where the building blocks are just different, it's like I'm not thinking about methods and classes and I don't know, just traditional, just bits and pieces about specifics that don't really matter about how a thing works. I'm trying to get a thing working. And there's kind of an ego thing when you're writing code. Obviously, there's like a really important, cool thing about, I understand this, I wrote this, it's readable, it's understandable, it's a clean abstraction, it's whatever. I understand the art, and I love the art of computer programming. But are you like my thing is, I've been trying to think, a lot of that is like I said, ego and feeling smart, feeling good, feeling like I'm doing cool puzzles at work and being fulfilled. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is make something or fix something. No one really cares if you feel cool about the way it works, except for a very few people. And so, yeah, I had this crisis where it's like, these things are going to ruin my life and replace my job, and this all could totally happen. But right now, in this moment, it feels like they basically just took care of a huge part of making stuff, and it's actually super easy to make stuff. And it's a crazy thing with Homegames because, like I said, obviously been working on this before LLMs were widely available, or whatever even existed. And uh, I guess this is like kind of a corny thing, but if you follow me a little bit, so I like YouTube. I love YouTube. I'm not very good at the video stuff, but I tried making YouTube videos in 2006, 2007, and at that time, the way I did it partially was with a flip video camera. Super easy, like USB 2.0 stick right attached to it, so you could just plug the entire camera into your computer, and then with YouTube, you could basically just yank those files off of your thing. I think I had to put them through editing software or whatever at the time, but the process was easy. The idea that you didn't need to have like $1,000 camera or any kind of idea what you were doing, you could just have this kind of basic $50 whatever it was $50 camera and become a YouTuber. It kind of made sense, right? Like YouTube blows up and makes this platform where anybody can make movies, and then the flip video camera is out, and like really anybody can make movies. So the Homegames thing is interesting because it feels like the LLMs are kind of like the flip video camera, where I've been making this thing where you can put up JavaScript and have a running game. But obviously the bottleneck or the problem is most people don't know JavaScript, and even the people that do, you know, what does knowing JavaScript mean? Like, are you proficient? Do you have the interest? Do you have the time to learn how like this game system is structured when there's a million different ways to learn how to make games or play games or whatever? You know, there's a bunch of different stuff out there. And so me making a platform where it's actually super easy to do stuff if you just have the code, and then similar like on the same timeline, this thing comes out that makes it super easy to generate code, and it's cheap, you know, like a ChatGPT membership or whatever. ChatGPT Plus is like $20 a month, or there's even like a free version of it or whatever. I mean, it's accessible, and I think it'll only get more accessible. So as time goes on and these tools become more regular, less niche, people just will have the ability to just say, I want this game that does this, and then this system can let you just kind of do it and share it and make it go. Kind of like a really crazy thing. I'm still trying to be confident in that kind of like metaphor or comparison to the flip video camera, but I do think that's probably the strongest thing. It just feels like the accessibility has been solved kind of coincidentally in the last couple of years since I stopped doing this thing. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about with AI. I mean, it's changed my entire profession, flipped everything upside down. Everything is super different, but I have more thoughts on it, but that's not, I don't really want to get into all that right now. I have a lot of stuff I have to get to. Okay, so another big thing. So yeah, I just wanted to always mention like my professional background, I guess, because I don't know, it feels like again, going a little bit back to the AI stuff, but right now more than ever, it feels like building trust in people to say like, yeah, I'm like a real person. I'm doing these videos in my garage. Like I'm a real person. It's very possible that an AI thing can make a video that looks a lot like me or sounds like me, but like, I want you to see the sweat on my forehead because I'm like a real person. I feel like that's important today. I'm trying not to sound like a crazy person, but yeah, just trying to let you know, like I do have, I know what I'm doing with a computer, and I still think AI is the biggest thing that's happened to my life besides like personal stuff, you know, whatever. The biggest change I've seen in my life, just mind-blowing every day. But the other thing is just kind of my opinions on games. Realizing it's kind of funny that me and Yazid recorded over 100 episodes of this thing, and we very rarely talked about video games. We talked about the tech stuff, the platform stuff, and just another like opinion thing. Oh yeah, I just briefly, I love video games. Video games, I think, are not very fun a lot of the time these days because they're I'm trying not to be chopped unk or whatever, as they say, but yeah, 31, I kind of grew up at a time where games, I think, were very different, obviously, than they are today. and I love video games, and I think basically I think a big problem with them today is that they are seen as a tech product. They're seen as like tech, uh, as opposed to like games, their own standalone thing. I think building a Java app that talks to a database that serves a million requests in a day, like that's all super impressive. It's super cool. It requires a skill set, but it's not creative or like artsy in the way that making a game is. Going back to the whole art programming thing, obviously there's a creative act in writing code and programming and coming up with a system, designing any system. But specifically in the output, like the big thing that I'm at right now with Homegames is I've made the tech. I know how the services work, the WebSocket, the website, the database, how everything actually works. And then it's like, okay, we'll make a game. It's like, well, okay, well, what's fun? I don't know. Numbers go up. Clicker games are fun. You click on the thing and the number goes up. Well, this sucks. Should we animate the button? Oh, yeah, you can kind of animate the button, and now when you click it, it feels nice. But, like, what's a game? Like, what am I making here? And I really don't view these games as tech. I view it as like a completely separate thing. So where I'm at right now is I can prototype games very quickly with Claude, GPT, whatever type of stuff. Like within 5, 10, 15 minutes, I can have a working prototype of an idea, with just polygons or whatever, no assets, but you can get all the guts kind of going, and then the creative process is really all there is. So I can record audio, I can draw images that I can then scan and put that into my game. I can make assets and animations and like craft a narrative, and like I can make an entire game happen. And I'm not trying to make like the new Ratchet and Clank. To me, Ratchet and Clank is like the best game in the world. Geometry Wars 2. There's a bunch of others, but Ratchet and Clank, Geometry Wars 2, Burnout 3. I don't think I can make a game that good on Homegames right now. I don't think that's really my goal. I think the goal for Homegames is to make games that are kind of amateurish, like I said, simple, and maybe they inspire you to make a real game. You can make your 2D bad sprite-based Burnout game, and then you think, oh, well, this system is actually kind of fun, and I can go and make, a real version of this and put it on Steam or whatever. But in that process, you kind of did the initial game design and like implementation, the actual momentum, is, like I said before, with just kind of getting going. It's hard to find time, it's hard to find motivation, but if you can kind of do a little experiment and get something cool out of it, then it's like it becomes like Homegames for me has been that. Homegames has been a little experiment, and you kind of just have to keep going because it just keeps getting cooler. So that's where I'm at right now, just trying to make games that are cooler. I have today's Wednesday, and on Friday I have a game testing session with my coworkers. I've been talking about this for years since I've known them, and so they're like, okay, well, now that you big shot on Hackernews, so we're gonna play your thing. So that lemonade stand game that I mentioned earlier is kind of my next main project that I really have to refine. Like I said, I have kind of a demo proof of concept going, but I need to make it real. I need to make the lemon guys animate, and I need to make sure all the projectiles look right, and like make an actual game from it, and make it a real thing. But for Friday, I'm gonna do this social game where it's kind of like a Jackbox style thing. So everybody joins, and the idea is one person in the group is a judge every round, and everybody else in the group gets this prompt, and they have their phone, they're playing on their phone or their computer or whatever, but the prompt is for a photo. So it's like something that you haven't washed in years or whatever, and you have to go around your house and take a photo of that, and it's like you create a fun social thing, taking pictures of silly things in your house, and they show up in the game. and the judge votes based on just their opinion if they liked what each photo was or not, and then that determines who gets points. So that seems pretty safe for coworkers. There's also like Pictionary type stuff. There's if you go to homegames.io, there's a bunch of basic kind of social game proofs of concept that I've built there. Nothing super fleshed out, nothing great. So again, going on to the next phase of this, which is the podcast, I don't think is going to be much of a thing. Yazid has been very busy. I've been very busy. Yazid's obviously not here right now. Not the priority when we hang out to do this thing. And he also doesn't work on his stuff anymore. And so podcast will be more of a every now and then type of thing. I'll keep it up like I said in the last one. But I think the main thing is going to be I made a game type of content. So my plan for pacing is about every month or so. So right now for July, August, my plan is to put up a video for how it works. Kind of just me walking through the actual system itself. What is the Homegames core server? What is Homegames.link, Homegames web, Homegames whatever. All the different pieces of Homegames. And hopefully, that's informative and lets people kind of understand the system underneath their games, and then obviously making it easier and more intuitive to make games on the website, and making games that are more impressive. Obviously, that creates this thing of people wanting to play games and show their friends, and brings more people to the platform. And more stuff I want to talk about. Trying to make sure I don't miss anything about what I was just saying. So I'll do the lemonade stand game next month by my plan is by the end of August to have that game done, and the video theoretically for that game would be done in August too, but maybe September. But yeah, every month just taking my time and making a game that I like a lot and trying to make it fun, because I think the system is truly good enough right now to make fun games and have it be relatively seamless. Like, you don't think about the platform, you think about the game. And that's been kind of like the biggest hurdle, I think, for this whole thing up to this point was, I want you to check out the platform, but there's no game really that's there yet that would make you care. And there's also a ton of friction to even checking out the platform. Download this stuff. Trust me as a person to run my software on your computer, whatever. So, anyway, just trying to make games, trying to build trust. Like I said, just trying to make something cool. I have not stopped working on this thing. I will keep working on this thing. One thing I just remembered is accounts. So going back to my intention about 4chan for video games, if you wanted to do that, which I still love the idea, I really don't like needing your email address or needing anything for a person to try to mess with the system. But the reality is the system lets you upload files like images, audio, and it lets you upload software that you can run on someone's machine, which is something else I got to talk about. And so just the kind of accountability needs to be there. There needs to be some sort of link to something, even if you're using a email generator type of website or whatever, just some sort of thing that a person did this thing that we can delete and whatever. But like, just having anonymous file upload is a recipe for disaster. It requires severe, like a lot of moderation that I don't have the capacity to do. And my swamp cooler is running out of water, so I'll make this fast. But so yeah, I don't want to do accounts, but I had to do accounts. It just makes sense. Email address is all that you need, and it's still really easy. I'm still not doing anything crazy. I really don't want your email address, and I don't send emails. It's just there for verification. And yes, okay, going to my list. Artificial intelligence. Game downloads. Yes, I don't know if I made it clear. You can play games offline in the browser. Single player games don't require multiplayer. You could also download games. So as a single HTML file, it contains the game library bundle as well as all of the assets that your game requires. The backend does like a static analysis of your actual game file, finds the assets that you reference, and then puts them into a bundle with your game, like I said, in a single HTML file. So there's a game called Pulse Front that's kind of like it's like a strategy game. It's kind of like Auralux if you're familiar with Auralux on the iPad. Auralux. It's like a strategy resource management game. Basically wanted to make a kind of a clone of that, but it's in the browser. It's all it works single player, multiplayer. You can download it, and it's really fun. I actually spend time playing that game. And yeah, you can just have the file. If the whole website goes down, like that file still exists. You can still play it. Yeah, kind of a cool, crazy thing. Stuff that died. The blog is dead. Sorry, RIP. Elasticsearch. I used to have like a search service. It's gone now. It's just searching in MongoDB. MongoDB, I wish I used Postgres. Whatever. It is what it is. I could make it better if people care about this and the numbers go up or whatever, but Mongo's fine for the time being. The public relay server, I used to have a thing where you can, obviously you can still run Homegames Core yourself on your machine, but I had a relay server which would basically take the data from your server, pipe it out to a server that I control, and then other people would be able to connect publicly to your Homegames instance through this kind of proxy. That stuff still exists. I just don't run it or maintain it anymore. RIP. The map. I like maps. I used to work at a startup that did mapping software. It was very cool. I just like mapping software, and I also love Halo 3. When I remember launch day of Halo 3, you get online and it tells you like the number of people online, and it shows you hot spots on the map of the world of where people are playing. Just like makes everything feel super alive and cool. And there was a time where there was the map feature on Homegames.io where on your game server you could opt into this thing which would basically take your public IP, look up where that country was, just country, and put like a dot on the map. So it would be like this many Homegames instances are running or whatever. Was super cool. Obviously never mattered and was kind of silly, but I thought it was cool. So killed that because it's just I'm not maintaining that. But yeah, there's more stuff. That swamp cooler is making some noises. The water pump is struggling, so I gotta do that. But other thing, yes. So sandboxing, people making the publishing process a lot more automated, letting people publish games through the studio, basically letting people do like. This is code that is going to run on somebody's machine, and that's super risky. And so there are checks that we do there, static analysis, like I said, basically making sure that you're not importing anything, you're just using the Squish library, that you're not doing like any exec calls, trying to actually call like system functions or anything like that on the host machine. But the other thing is that everything is now running inside of a Docker container, optionally. So the game's running on Homegames Core in my hosted service that kind of is the back end for everything you see on Homegames.io. Those games are running in a Docker container on that machine and then kind of being proxied through with a WebSocket to your client. And so basically, yeah, if people are trying to read all of the files on the host system, if they somehow break out of the static analysis checks that we have, then they try to access files on the system or the network or whatever. They're in a Docker container that has no, like basically anything on it. So that is also an option when you're running Homegames Core yourself. If you have Docker installed, it'll just kind of run containers in the background kind of magically. And if you're not running Docker, then it'll just run with fork like it used to, which is just a new node process, but that's obviously riskier. Yeah, a lot to talk about, lots more stuff I got to do, but essentially that's it. Thank you everybody for listening. Yeah, homegames.io, it's a crazy thing. Please check it out. And yeah, I will do more stuff on YouTube. Please check out the YouTube. It's Homegames.io on YouTube. I will do another one of these episodes, but just not consistently. This is kind of going to be a weird, I don't know, very, very infrequent podcast, but it will still remain. Yes, thank you everybody for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.